Hello and welcome to Round Rant. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Nick Gross. You may have heard of him in his musical endeavors. He has been the drummer for the band Girlfriends, Goldfinger, many other acts in the past as well. He has also co-founded companies such as Big Noise and Gross Labs as well. And firstly, I suppose, Nick, it's probably sunny over there. We're in the depths of winter here in Dublin, but how is all with you right now?
Everything is great. I just left a school tour for my 5-year-old son who's now going into kindergarten, and now I'm back at the office on a Saturday doing this awesome podcast with you. The work never stops. All different kinds of elements of life hitting me at the same time, whether it's shows, making records, doing fun business stuff, getting my kid into kindergarten. Life is busy, dude, but it's nice that it's sunny in Orange County the majority of the time. I don't know how you guys do the cold Dublin thing. It's pretty, is it that cold out there all the time? It's got to be nice in the summer, right?
Yeah, no, it is. I'm actually blessed. So it's nearly November here, and normally it's like 8 degrees and like freezing and wet. This
Oh my
week it's
God.
been like 14 to 15 degrees, which is pretty incredible
Yeah.
for us. So in the summer you can get 25 degrees on good days, and it's a whole different
Dublin is
level.
a place. Yeah, Dublin's a place that I have only visited one time in my life, but it's 45% of my bloodline. So I feel like I need to get out there more.
Well, what's the connection family wise or
I
blood
mean,
wise?
it's I know a lot of Irish in the blood, Scottish, some Canadian, majority Irish though. So only been there one time. I got to make it a thing to get out there.
Yeah, whether it's touring or a girlfriend show, you will
Exactly.
you won't be disappointed anyway. I'll put it that way. But
Sweet.
I suppose, yeah, like I normally delve into, childhood and whatnot, but since your, I suppose, main body of work, in my perspective, is like the musicianship side of your life. But listen, we'll delve into the fact that you're not just a guy who bangs snare drums all week. So, like, what was there a particular person? So, like, I play bass guitar, I also play a few other instruments, but like, what got me into picking up a bass guitar was Blink 182 Untitled album. And I was a big fan of Mark, their bass player. And I was like, right, I want to learn how to play bass. And it was like that particular moment. I think it was the feel in this video. I was like, that's it. I love that. Let me dive into that. And that's what made me pick up guitar and whatnot. And parents and family, friends, etc., were really encouraging of it. But with you, I know, like you said, that you started off on the piano and then transferred over to drums. But like, was it a particular moment? Was there, a family member? Was it a friend? Was it an experience that suddenly twisted that spark in your brain to be like, okay, let's see what music can do for me?
Yeah, my family, none of us really come from a music background per se.
Same.
There's kind of, yeah, no one in my family that was like that into music or pursued somewhat of a career around it or anything. So I think I was the first time where I knew that I kind of wanted to play the drums was listening to a band called Everclear back in the early 90s. I was born in 88. I think it was probably 1993 when that album came out. So much for the Afterglow. And the minute I heard drums on that album, just the way they were recorded and kind of the beat of the second song that comes in, like that was the moment that clicked for me as a young kid, where I was like, I want to do this and figure out how to get on the drums and play. That was before I even knew if I could play the drums. And then at 6, mom got me a drum kit, and it all just kind of connected. Like legs worked with hands and feet, and it just kind of worked in my brain. So I was super lucky to, I think, have that early on as a kid, and found something that worked for me at a young age. Obviously, Travis Barker has always been my kind of go-to as a teenage kid, as someone that I've always looked up to as a drummer. I think just, from his style to how he thought about positioning his own brands within music, incorporating other elements of business and creativity on top of the music, I always thought was really cool and creative. To, you know, the style of creativity he would bring to those songs, I think was so awesome. And so I would play to a lot of Blink records, obviously, just like a lot of kids from, you know, Southern California who obviously grew up loving Blink. But yeah, I mean, even bands that were, you know, like the Mad Caddies and Less Than Jake and No Effects and some of those kind of bands too, listening to them all the way to like, you know, No Doubt, when they were coming up in the early 90s out here. And obviously Goldfinger was a part of that, which is so cool. So there was a lot of that. And yeah, man, I'm just, I think fortunate to be able to kind of be a part of that like Southern California scene at the time.
Yeah, and it's grown legs, that apparent, you know, SoCal scene, and even right now you can see a lot of the legacy bands, your Blinks, your Green Days, even the Offspring announced a big European tour there.
Yep.
Like, it's very easy to get engulfed in that and inspired by that, but I suppose from your point of view, like you mentioned, say Goldfinger, who, like, say present day, you did a lot of touring for, and you became the official drummer about 4 years ago or so. But like, there's still 15, 20, 30 years that comes before that. And for maybe a lack of understanding from my point of view, it's like, were you just learning how to be a drummer, being a part of all maybe these small bands, playing in clubs, enjoying the skateboard lifestyle? Like, I've had, you know, members of Bowling for Soup and one or two other bands on here as well who just talked about it, where, like, you know, the buzz wasn't about getting your best paycheck or hearing yourself on on the radio. It was actually being around friends, getting up to no good, playing in front of 100 people, going just kind of on the tour of their life. So was that what the first maybe 10 years, you might not necessarily even say it as a career with all due respect, but like, what were you doing once you kind of were regularly playing drums? Did you find a band, or did you just play in a basement until, you know, your neighbors or
Yeah.
someone told you to shut up?
So I was obsessed with trying to figure out how to be in a band. Call it 11, 12 years old. I went to a CCD, you know, church catechism program in Laguna Beach, and met a kid there named Chase. He was the only kid with a beard at 12 years old. And I was like, okay, this kid's cool. I got to connect with him and see what
Yeah.
this kid's all about. He was in a band at the time called Stool Pigeon in Laguna Beach. And I was determined to become the drummer in the band. You know, the guitar player, bass player, singer Chase came over to my house. We had a little rehearsal, hang out. You know, from that day I was in the band. So Stool Pigeon was the first foray into music and working towards, you know, breaking a band and starting to play shows and things of that nature. I would just play local shows here, whether it was like, you know, races in Newport Beach where people are, you know, running marathons, playing on the side of the street in those things, all the way to what I remember is our first show at the Roxy Theater when I was 14 years old, I think. You know, there were 6 people that showed up on a Tuesday night, but it was the most exciting thing of all time just because we were playing the Roxy. And, you know, the perspective is so funny looking back on that now, of just like how big of a moment that was, because it's all so fresh and also new. And those times were some of the most fun times, I think, being in a band, because it was also, there's so much discovery around it and so many new things to explore and figure out. Like, you know, does a manager make sense for us right now? Who might that person be to really help our career move forward? You know, how do we connect with other bands to be able to get on bigger shows? And luckily for us, we lived in a town, Laguna Beach, and we had an MTV show come into our town at the time I was in high school. It was called MTV Laguna Beach. They happened to feature, you know, our band as a character on the 3rd season of the show. So it was this completely kind of crazy timing of being in the right place, right time. What's that phrase? Luck is when, you know, preparation and opportunity come together. So I think that for me was definitely that moment as a 16-year-old then at that point, having worked on my first band for 3 or 4 years in high school. We became kind of the thing that all the kids would love to go to, you know, to watch a performance, watch a show. whether it was local or whether it was in LA, we used to bring like Greyhound buses. We would rent Greyhound buses and bus kids up from Laguna up to LA to our shows.
Class.
Selling tickets for $20 in school to kids, like, who wants to buy a ticket? We got a show coming up. It was fun. Like, all that stuff is cool to look back on. And, the MTV show was amazing for us. It was kind of this, you work for something for 5-6 years in school since the beginning of high school. And then you have that opportunity come in to feature our band. We ended up closing out TRL, doing some really cool stuff. Signed to Sony Epic Records when I was 17. The show certainly helped that. And that kind of was the thing that propelled, I would say, like the rest of what I'm doing in music forward from that point. And I don't know, just putting good energy out there. So it was a lot of fun in those years.
And what I'm kind of maybe jumping the gun here, but what? Because when I think of musicians, the stereotypical musician is the guy who plays guitar, plays drums, who skates, drinks, does the party lifestyle. But like, you've kind of attached and detached yourselves with that, where you then invested a lot of your time and energy into business. And say before, say, Girlfriends came onto the scene, you were, showing signs of like starting your own companies, or at least co-founding companies, like whether it was Big Noise, or even you mentioned Find Your Grind was like a foundation towards like disadvantaged young people. So not necessarily where did that come from? Because like, this is coming from the guys done 5 marathons in a week for cancer research, but
Yeah.
like, where did the maybe entrepreneurial business side come from? Because it's easy to say what got you into music, but it's probably tougher to answer a question where like, what made you want to go through the stresses of starting foundations or starting these companies and building them from scratch?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think first and foremost, I think it kind of comes from like a bit of how you were born. I've always had this pretty inherent drive within me since I was a kid. Going back to the first band conversation we just had, like, I was the only person in the band that would have the notebook to write down the things that I wanted to accomplish, the goals that I wanted to achieve at a young age, of like, here are the steps that it takes and the things that I think that I want to do, and the people I need to reach out to and how to connect with those people and everything, to be able to create success. And so I was really the only one from the beginning doing those things. And that was just an inherent part, I think, of who I am and my DNA. And I've been I've been surrounded by business my entire life. My father comes from a business financial background. I've kind of grown up seeing the kind of like determination and hard work and persistence and discipline and stuff like that it takes to create success as I was from being a little kid. And so, yeah, like, aside from all that stuff, I just have always looked at, I think there's a power in an ecosystem of having your hand in multiple things at the same time. I can really leverage a lot of the things that I do with my education company and find ways to use my music company to, we built out a big live event tour for 2 years with Find Your Grind, my educational platform, where we toured around the country speaking in schools. My music company helped build out that entire property so that I was able to go do that. That's an example of how, one hand can feed the other hand. And so I've always found kind of power in that. And even just going back to the example of Travis Barker, like having that famous Stars and Straps logo on the front of his drum kit while he was performing with Blink inevitably helped him, build a business around Famous, leveraging one platform for the other. And so I think it's that kind of mentality that I've always been drawn to, all the way to, how Rob Dyrdek started Fantasy Factory and incorporated all of those businesses under one roof, to live in the same ecosystem and figure out ways for each of those things to kind of feed off of each other and grow off of each other. And so I've always found that to be pretty interesting. And definitely, I think with my kind of busy energy nature, I think it was a good route for me to explore, to have these different things that all kind of work together, that all stem from my passions and interests. But for some people, that's not always the best, like my, I know people who can only really focus on one thing. And there's, I think, a huge advantage to going deep on one thing at a time. But I also think that there's an advantage to playing multiple cards, to seeing which one stands out over the long run. And ideally over that long run, you're having those multiple cards work with each other to benefit and grow each other. So I don't know. I think it's just a creative way to think about business, more so of just different levers and accelerators to pull, whether it's investments that you have, a portfolio you're building, businesses that you run internally. What are the ways that you can help that portfolio of things grow and synergistically work together? And there's a creativity and entrepreneurialism in that I think is more fun than just focusing on one thing for 10 years, So that's kind of my approach, I guess, a bit about it.
Yeah. And with, say, the music side of, I suppose, really the last maybe 5-10 years, focusing in on that, I think it was 2018, you started touring with Goldfinger. John Feldman, obviously kind of an iconic front man, and like even in some areas he's probably even a bigger producer now than he is front man, because some of the work he's done.
For sure.
And
I would agree.
With regards to that, like ebbs and flows in your case, where music might be the priority and then business, and as you said, like it can sometimes be a curse where you might have too much on your plate, or sometimes if you invest purely into music you might get more rewards than maybe 60% music, 40% business and whatever. But when you started touring with the band like Goldfinger, and then a couple of years in being stated in to be like the permanent drummer, like did that reshape your view on, I suppose, like what you viewed yourself as, if that makes sense? Where like, did you then kind of walk around, strut around, believe yourself to be like, okay, my priority is to be a musician, it's to play kick-ass shows, it's to make sure I'm detailed with my prep and I don't let John and the rest of the band members down? Or did you still view yourself as, Nick the businessman, and then, on evenings I'll be selling out arenas or playing on Warp tours or whatnot with Goldfinger?
Yeah, I mean, I've always viewed myself first and foremost, in this, entertainment, as an artist, as a drummer. That's the core of who I am, and I think the thing that I do best. And so I never want to lose that. The reason why these operating companies under my family office, Gross Labs, exist, and the things that I get to do today all stem from music and all stem from the drums. Find Your Grime education platform was started through my studio in LA, right? So there's everything kind of comes, I would say, at the core through music and through my background as a drummer. And so I think Goldfinger was just another one of those areas that allowed me to elevate myself as a drummer and give myself a different platform through, music that I grew up listening to as a kid. And stylistically as a drummer, I think that I can, I do really well playing for those kind of, like playing that style of music. And it's been an authentic thing as a kid, growing up playing to those records, and then being able to do it 20 years later in a real life scenario was like the perfect opportunity, I think, for me. And why I love the Girlfriends project as well with Travis that I'm doing right now is because it's, it's this pop punk, really fun ode to the music we grew up listening to. And so it feels, I guess, more authentic now for me in a place over the last 5 years than I've ever been as a drummer. I've been in bands for the last 20 years growing up, but I think the last 5 years is where I've really hit a stride of finding what's been most authentic to me. And I'm super appreciative of that. The John Feldman story was really cool because, he's obviously one of those guys I grew up totally respecting, and wanted to have the opportunity to meet him. I remember calling him for the first time with one of my projects I was working on a couple years ago called Half the Animal. And I was like, dude, will you listen to some songs? Would love to have, I forget how I got connected to him. I was on a phone call. I sent him one of the songs from our bands and he called me back. He was like, dude, this isn't for me. I wouldn't know what to do with this. So, apologies, but best of luck. And I was like, oh shit, like, okay, well, I guess that's that.
Yeah.
And a year or two later, got connected with him through a completely different situation. He was, filming this thing. It was a Broadway musical that he had written all the music for, but it was about his life growing up as a kid in San Francisco as like a punk rock kid. And he had all these awesome songs, and he was filming a mini production or sizzle around pitching the idea. And I met him on that set. And we just started talking about different ideas. And he had told me he's never had a label before, for himself. He's always signed other artists to other labels. And that was always really odd to me. And I was like, how does a guy like John Feldman not have his own thing where he's like signing his own artist to his own label in house? And so we kind of riffed on that idea for a couple months and started Big Noise after that. But it's really kind of like a interesting manifestation belief kind of story. I've always wanted to meet John Feldman, just like so many kids growing up who are into music, especially in Southern California. And to kind of make that happen in a more real way through Goldfinger and then through Big Noise has been really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout out to him. He's got plenty of bangers. And I'm sure like listening to 99 Red Balloons and then actually performing it is probably a surreal
Dude,
experience.
It's the best. It's the best. It's the best. Getting everyone at the end of that song to like jump in unison, and the energy from that song, so cool. Yeah. Especially playing it in Germany.
Yeah.
that was a whole experience we had this year too, playing that in Germany, where we're like, oh my God, the second verse where he sings in German, like, this is it. We're here right now. Yeah. We're in Germany.
They've been waiting.
So that was cool.
Class. Yeah. And with Girlfriends, like, did that, maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but like, did the 2 to 3 year experience with Goldfinger play a big part in you eventually going, okay, let's make a band, let's be inspired by not necessarily Goldfinger. They have a bit of ska, they have a bit of punk rock, bit of rock, but like when you called up Travis with the idea to maybe start Girlfriends or vice versa, or someone else maybe gave you the inspiration for it, but like, did that initial stint with Goldfinger play a part in you kind of going, okay, let's give it a crack as a duo, which obviously is, unless you're 21 Pilots, it's a bit weird to go into the kind of rock sphere. And Royal Blood as well, need to mention them as well.
Yeah. For sure, Royal Blood. Yeah. Yes, I think having 2018 and 2019 playing shows with Goldfinger, Travis was the initial person to reach out to me when he saw a post on my Instagram from a Goldfinger show. And I think I was saying something like, I miss touring or I miss playing shows. And it was, we probably hadn't played a show in 6 months or something like that. And he was like, I want to start a band. Would you be interested in kind of getting together and talking about ideas? I was like, dude, of course, let's do it. And so he came over to my office and we just started riffing on, ideas and what it could potentially be, and listening to stuff Travis was into, listening to records I was into, and what did we actually want it to sound like. And he came with a list of 5 band names. It's really funny. And the first one on the list was Girlfriends. And I was like, I don't even need to hear the other 4. That's such a great name. God bless if this is available across socials and all this stuff. We actually had to do some work to find, to get the Instagram and all that stuff. But we did it, and we best band name in the world, so we went for it, and naturally got in with John Feldman to make the first record in 2020 when COVID hit. So it definitely was not a COVID project. This was something that came together before then, and luckily COVID gave us the chance to focus in for 4 or 5 months at the beginning in 2020 and just really focus on making music and being in a room together. And it was honestly the best thing I think that could have happened because of, the attention of what happened to streaming and to, movies and music and video games and all the height of all that stuff. Because of people being at home, I think it really helped launch the project. And, on top of hopefully having some great songs that we're really proud of for the first album during that time. And yeah, I think the Goldfinger thing definitely helped. And naturally having, Feldy be someone who I was working on with my label, it made perfect sense to bring girlfriends over there to the label side and just have fun making music. And so we did that for the first record, second record, and now here we are about to get in with John again in the next couple of weeks here to go for album 3.
Exciting. And with the creative process, it'd be dismissive of me not to delve into that because, like, I've had, as I said, Bowling for Soup, then some maybe UK bands like Don Broco, Everything Everything. I even had Weethan on, who's a DJ who's based in LA as well.
Yeah. Yep.
And their creative processes are like so different. It's bizarre. Some just are like, yeah, I spent 20 minutes and that's that. While other people write a song, tear it apart again, come back, get a second opinion, tear it again. And some start with acoustic guitar, some start with a beat, some start with an idea at 4:30 in the morning. Like, what does Girlfriends is, and I know I'm sure John has an input too if he's in there as a producer, but like, say with yourself, like, what sort of role would you typically play consistently, say, across an EP or an album?
Yeah. Luckily, having a 2-piece band, the third person in the room is always like our third member, right?
Yeah.
I think the idea of starting a 2-piece initially for me was like, wow, can that be something that would work? Or is that too weird? But I thought, it actually is pretty unique and different. And I think something that does work for us. And so that third person in the room is always so crucial with whoever we're making music for, because it's really, a third member of the band, like I've been saying. So, I am really great with building out the foundations of tracks of the music. So, I can go in, play guitar. I played all the guitars, all the bass, all the music, all the drums on that first and second album. And Travis gets to come in and he's amazing at melodies and writing lyrics on top of kind of the energy that I'm creating in the music side. So we work really well on that place of things. Like, I'm not very good at writing songs, but I can really help put together melody structures and the music foundation behind everything. And I do that well with Feldy too. So that's what's, I think, made it so work so well, because Feldy's been this, kind of captain in the room, helping produce and guide the ship, bringing great creative ideas and lyric ideas and melody ideas forward all the time for Travis to jump in on. But then he can also work with me really well to help build the music side. So he's kind of that perfect combination of producer that can also write and help shape songs and push things in the right direction. And so that's how we've been able to work really well like that. And for album 2, it was a bit more of a struggle for us because we did take that approach of trying to cut up different songs with different people, and we got in with multiple producers and tons of other songwriters to just try something different, and then brought a lot of those ideas back to Feldy to help him produce and finish, which wasn't the best formula for us. It was kind of I think it was nice to try, but I think we do best with just one other person in the room where it can be an intimate situation and bang out a record. With Feldy, it's a lot of fun. The first 2-3 weeks, we try and get as many ideas, out there, even if it's just skeletons of ideas on an acoustic guitar, finish those and then come back and listen to the 15 or 20 different ideas and say, okay, what are the best ones that we want to move forward with from here, so that we're not just stuck tinkering on an idea and trying to finish a song from start to finish for a week and then move on to the next song for another week and it has to be finished. We've never really worked great that way. So, throwing a bunch of paint on the wall, seeing what sticks, and then kind of going deeper on the ones that we really like has, I think, been the right formula for us, and definitely how Feldy likes to work. The guy probably writes 400 songs in 365 days out of the year. So there's no extra tinkering in the room for a week on a song in John Feldman's studio. We've learned that's not the right process. So we kind of go with the flow there.
Yeah, you've heard from countless other bands, whether it was maybe 5 Seconds or some, or even Blink with their California albums, where it was just like right, 3 coffees, donut, we're writing 10 song
Yeah.
ideas in the next hour. So
Yep. Yeah. Good luck. Strap in.
yeah, and I think that's where I think even like Blink wrote "Bored to Death" was in like the first 20 minutes, pretty much the skeleton of that song. So there's definitely a lot of merit to it because sometimes you can go too far the other way where you get in your own head,
Overthink.
yeah, yeah, and you can nearly crucify a song of all
Yeah.
its uniqueness. And one thing I had to ask because I was nearly going to forget, and the worst thing for a podcaster is forgetting to ask a question that you personally
Yeah.
really want to ask. And it was actually on my highly perverse marathon today. One of your songs from Girlfriends was sandwiched between Metallica 1 and after it, I think it was in Explosions in the Sky. So it was two epics that you were either side of, but the Jessica song came on. And I don't know if you can recall it, but every time I hear it, like there's obviously I think the chorus is incredible. The flow to it's absolutely like so memorable, but the lyrics, like I think it goes 2 nights too long to be alone, where it's the play on words of the letter two. Do you remember, like, was that Travis's idea? Because I like, you rarely hear that. Like, I've listened to tens of thousands of songs, and I can't really remember hearing another song where it's just like that letter two basically is nearly like matching your, because you've got like it's nearly like a snare bass drum pat. It's
Yeah.
like a swingy boom, 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 boom for
Yep.
the chorus, and the lyrics is actually like matching your beat. But it also, obviously, as I said, nearly plays a little trick on the word. Or sorry, the number two. Do you remember the writing process for that?
Jessica was such a fun song to write in the studio and create. I knew the minute that chorus came together, it was going to be a special song. This is the first time anyone's ever called out the two, two, two in a row. 2 nights too long to be alone. That's the first time I've ever heard it phrased that way. So I'm processing it now, but it actually is really cool. That's the stuff that Travis does really well, are these play on words and what's the right what's there's a word out there for this, but he's just the play on words of connecting things from the start to finish and having it be a twist at the same time. He's really good at thinking of ideas like that as a lyricist. I think that's been kind of his go-to whenever he writes songs.
Because like, sorry to interrupt,
And
but it's like the number two, then it's TO, and then TOO. So it's like
yeah, it's crazy.
the three same sounding words that are all different.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, shout out to Travis. He's a lot smarter than I am. Good for him. But that's cool. Yeah, like we knew it was a really great song in the studio. It was a nighttime session at Feldy's house. I remember playing that guitar part where it's like the whole chorus. We were kind of listening to a lot of 1975 stuff making this record, the first one. So there's a lot of these kind of guitar riffs and things that I came up with that kind of mimic a lot of those energies of the 1975 songs. And that line that kind of is that concurrent 2 note sliding up and down the guitar neck thing throughout the chorus is, I think, a reflection of kind of those 1975 records that we blended into this. It's funny, we bring a guitar player out on tour with us, and so teaching him all these different kinds of riffs on the first album is always a funny process, going through all these unique little riffs that happen throughout album one. And it's always a fun journey to kind of explain those to guitar players that come with us. But I think it makes it a lot of fun, and we're definitely proud of that first album.
Yeah. And you've just come off a tour with Avril Lavigne, who's kind of the queen of pop rock, so to speak. And I always find it fascinating because I know one or two Irish artists who are doing really well, like some like indie rock bands who like have played at Reading Festival. They've sold out big enough shows in Ireland and big enough venues, but like they're still like, when people see the shows they're playing, they must be like, oh, they must be reeling in all the cash, blah blah blah, and like they just aren't. I know one or two of them like personally, and they're just like it's a bit skint. Like one of us works a second job in like a little shop, but you are probably fortunate enough to work and see both sides of the coin, like say with Big Noise and going on these
Yep.
big tours. But do you feel that music, I suppose the relationship between the management side and the partner side and the label side, is it getting back to a good place? Because I felt like 5, 10 years ago, maybe before the Spotify boom, it was a bit too label heavy, where a lot of bands were like, I need to go on an independent, we need to start our own label, the label are trying to kill us and all this stuff. So where do you think bands and labels are at currently?
Yeah. I think so much of the positioning of labels now, a lot of it goes down to these deal structures, I think, with artists. People, I think, have this definition of these old school labels that are hyper aggressive in their deal structures and do these 360 kind of deals where they're going to own everything from your touring to your records to your merch to all of the things, making it hard to survive as an artist. But with Big Noise, we actually try and do really flexible artist structures where we'll put up money to make records and market them, but we're actually doing 50-50 profit splits with artists upon recoupment of some of those of that money, and things like that are a little bit more friendly, where it's like, we're not taking anything from touring, we're not taking anything from merch, we're letting artists go out and make money in other ways. But I think there are more flexible structures out there these days that are more artist friendly. And I think advantages to being within certain ecosystems that you want to be in. I think Big Noise has done a really great job curating this, pop punk alternative, John Feldman-esque energy of a label. And so if you're an artist that is kind of in that genre, Big Noise might be a great family and ecosystem for you to be a part of, to get on bigger shows, to have some of those artists feature on your records, to have a guy like Feldman call and make a favor for you to accelerate something in your music. Like, there's advantages to a lot of those things. I think it's so anyways, everyone's different. We try and be obviously very favorable and flexible to the artist, and making sure that they're happy and stoked and want to be a part of what we're doing first and foremost. And I'm trying to, what was the beginning part of your question again?
Just
I started
in relation to just like how the relationship is now with labels and bands. Like I felt like 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah. And I think the other point I was going to bring up was, I think it's so important today to be hyper focused on, really nurturing those first 100 core fans, like the really rooted fans to your music. Even if it's your first 100 or your first 1,000, like building that community for yourself as an artist of who those fans are and what, I would much rather have 100 hyper engaged, engaging with every drop of merch that I do, a part of it, like showing up to every event, telling their friends, than 1,000 somewhat engaged, somewhat not engaged fans that, might be passive, might be engaged one time of the year, whatever. I think there's a power in really figuring out how to build your community of core fans today. That's more important probably than ever, to really help an artist who might be independent or might be thinking about even signing to a label. To have that as a core, I think, is probably the most important thing to try and figure out over your first couple of years as an artist, of like who those people are and how to grow business from that. And I think the label thing is a choice you got to make along the way around what's the right step or next step for your music and for what you want to do in your career, and finding the right matches for those labels that might be able to be helpful for you. But thankfully today, you don't necessarily need a label if you can do it right and find who those first 1,000 fans are and really build a core business that allows you to go out and tour and build upon that foundation.
Yeah, for sure. And like you can only, like we Taylor Swift here about well, probably a bit longer, but 6 weeks ago, and the whole place shut down and was into a frenzy for a few nights. And even reading about like Blink's One More Time tour, they made an absolute fortune out of that. But like you kind of alluded to it there, like there is that bit of a like LA gang where you have like yourselves, maybe not so much now, but like you had 5 Seconds of Summer, you had Mod Sun, you have MGK, even though I'm not sure what genre he's going to be in next, but he did have his pop punk phase there for sure. But with regards to the torn side of things, like the exposure you must have gotten supporting Avril, you'd go on every night with Even Simple Plan and cover a Blink song or a different song sometimes. Like, how, I suppose, how does, is a lot of the time like that just Avril or someone from her team getting out to you, or is it more like you pushing it onto their doorstep and saying, "Hey, look, we'd be a really good fit. We're similar genres, similar kind of market field," and then also to kind of follow up on that, one thing I've always been intrigued by, because I've heard so many different variations of what you get in return. I've heard of bands just saying, "Listen, you pay your own way. You're getting the exposure that you wouldn't otherwise get." Well, I've also heard other bands be like, "We'll pay a pretty handy number to do this tour with us." So I know I've loaded a lot into that, but the two questions
Yeah, yeah.
basically.
I th- yeah, no, all good. I think that it really depends on kind of where. Obviously, it's at the headliner's discretion. You know what they want to do, what they're going to pay. Here's the offer. Do you want it or do you not? Those offers can obviously change based on the status of, I guess, where your band currently sits, in the nature of your monthly streams, to your social media followers, to how well your last record did or your last single did. What are the talking points, the things that you currently have going on as an artist to leverage the best possible position and outcome from a tour like that. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the headliner's offer and decision of what it is. For us, with Avril touring Europe in 2023 for the first time with her, it basically was that case. It was like, do you guys want to come out with us or not? You're going to kind of have to figure out your own way. And we were like, of course we're going to figure out our own way and do this. And then the second tour was different, where we got a great offer, and it was in the United States, and we had done a tour with her before, and it was a different situation. So in terms of kind of getting onto those tours, it was so much just about building a healthy relationship, with her. Really stemmed through our relationship with Mod Sun at my label, who we had signed at the time, who ended up dating her. They ended up having an awesome record together called Flames that did really well for us at the label, and it was a good moment for him. And I ended up playing Jimmy Kimmel with Mod Sun. I played drums, Feldy played guitar, Avril sang on Flames, and it was obviously Mod Sun's track. And so just started to develop a relationship with Avril through things like that. And the right opportunity came around where she called me in 2023 and was like, "Hey, I would love to have you open up for me in Europe. What do you think?" And it was just kind of right time, right place, and nurturing a relationship, and most importantly, having it be like authentic. We were never really reaching out to her going, "Bring us on, whatever you have coming up next." Like it was more so kind of the reverse. So just finding the right times for those things to happen, and hopefully it does.
Cool. And with, just cautious of time here, with relation to all the plates you're trying to spin currently, like when like Nick Gross's mind is thinking a bit into the midterm as opposed to what you're probably having for dinner and whatnot, whether it's business related or aspirations you mentioned there about the album with Girlfriends, which looking forward to, with regards to your priorities right now and your aspirations, like what are the 2 or 3 things that you're most dedicated on? Like I saw on LinkedIn there, Tiger Woods popping up on my feed, and I was like, what is this? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, there's Nick. So what are things you're looking forward to, midterm to try and achieve?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to being, as present as I can be as a father in my son's life, especially as he gets older now and just turned 5. It was a lot different when he was 6 months old going on tour, and now It's like, okay, how do we make these things work the right way? And how do we want to tour, and what are the right opportunities we want to go after on the music side? And what sacrifices do you want to make? And so those things start to become more front and center as your kids get older. And so, yeah, I just want to be super, in the mix and present as a father, number one. And then number two, Gross Labs has been such a really cool thing for me, because it's really, I consider it my family office. It's my investment group, incubation group, that I get to kind of house all of the projects that I have going on under one roof. And so it's been a great way for me to centralize and bring everything together under one umbrella, versus having, all these disparate things kind of out there operating independently of each other. And so, to my point kind of earlier before, I think Gross Labs has been a great ecosystem connector for everything that I'm doing. And it allows me to focus from the top level down of, okay, what are the things, business wise and strategy wise from the Gross Labs level we want to do. And then how does that trickle down into these different companies and nonprofit and investments? And it gives it a better framework, I think, to have a little bit more clarity instead of running around to 20 different things all day long. So, the way that those operating companies and things like Find Your Grind and Big Noise and my studio operate is I've been able to bring in really great operators essentially for each of those companies that really help me move them along on a day-to-day basis. And I get to kind of be as involved as I want. But also it allows me the flexibility to stay a bit more high up at the Gross Labs level to think about, what are the next 5 years of growing a family office and the impact I want to have from that perspective. So I don't know, dude, it's a lot. Like I manage a lot of things at the same time, but I enjoy it. I enjoy having, my hand in a lot of different things. Some people it might not be the right thing for, but ultimately it's fun being in this sports media entertainment space around the investing we're doing and how those things can connect to my music endeavors and how my internal companies can help the investments grow. And it's just a fun, creative kind of playground of things going on. But yeah, it's definitely a lot at the same time. So without drums, I'd probably pop.
Good stuff. Well, I look forward to what comes, both creatively and on the business side of things, especially. With regards to how I finish these podcasts, I just do a quick fire round. It's nothing too insane. Some people sometimes get worried, so yeah, I've never had to edit out an answer. So people,
dude, I'll do my best.
People tend to do well, and they're relatively easy. So
okay, sweet.
So what is we might as well keep it on topic. What is your favorite Blink-182 song?
What's My Age Again?
Yeah. I only realized the other day the second chorus starts after like 56 seconds, finishes after 56 seconds, which is weird.
Yeah. I just figured out that the line says he work alone instead of I walk alone.
Yeah.
To get the feeling right. That blew my mind about a year ago, and I haven't gotten over it since.
Yeah. The one thing you tell your younger self?
Be more patient, enjoy the journey.
Okay. What is your coffee order?
Vanilla latte, extra shot of espresso, so bump it from 2 to 3 shots, light on the vanilla, put it in an IV and drip it throughout me all day.
Yeah, when the baristas see you coming in, they're like, right, let's buckle up. Let's buckle up. What is your biggest pet peeve in general?
Biggest pet peeve is people that show up late to things and cords that are lying around on the ground and like in drawers of like, I was at home the other day and there's like 50 iPhone cords just tangled in a ball. And I'm like, how does anyone, my mind basically explodes. I'm very OCD. If you couldn't tell behind my office, I'm very like, I have to have things pretty clean and organized to be able to think properly. So I would say the answer to your question, tangled cords really drives me nuts.
Yeah. What is outside of America the best city? Sorry, the best city you have visited.
Man, so many.
It's got to be one.
I'll
I've got to
go with,
be.
yeah, I'll go with Gstaad in Switzerland. That was a really cool place we went to about a year ago with my family that was unlike anything I'd seen before in terms of like waterfalls, and just the landscape of Switzerland was psycho. So that was a really awesome one.
Okay. And what was the last book you've read?
The the book that I'm currently reading right now is a Tony Robbins book based around investing. And I think it's his latest one that he brought out. So it's all about alternative investments and, sports ownership and, secondary market sales and real estate and private equity and venture and things in that world that I'm just trying to learn more about. So that's what I got going on right now.
Interesting. And last one from me is, if you could ask yourself a question that I haven't asked you today, what would it be? Can be anything.
I don't know. So I'm asking the question to myself.
Yeah.
What's an interesting fact that people might not know about you? How about that one?
Okay, well, you've got to answer that.
And then I'll answer it. I was born as a test tube baby. I was one of the first test tube babies in 1988 in California to be born. They have a lot of obviously the IVF stuff now, but I was one of the first ones in 88, first 100 in California. So without science, I wouldn't be here today. So, I always think that's a pretty trippy element to how I got here on the planet, but here I am. Let's go.
Yeah, let's have a day. Well, listen,
dude, I haven't. You'd think with being born in a test tube would allow me to run 7 marathons in 7 days, but it certainly can't, dude. So you're the real warrior over there, dude. I can't believe you're doing the interview, and it's been awesome to be on here.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. It's something that I was even looking forward to through the peaks and troughs of the run earlier. So
where's tomorrow? And where's the next one? Where do you finish up?
Tomorrow I'm actually doing the Dublin Marathon, so the actual event is on tomorrow. So I'm doing that.
And how are you recovering? Like, how are you doing?
My body is pretty, like, this is as good as it gets. And then once it goes below the equator, it's...
How are you going to do it tomorrow? Like, do you recover? How do you get through all this stuff?
Get into an ice bath, strap myself up, eat as much food as I physically can, and yeah, as generic as it sounds, just put my left foot in front of my right and repeat that for 5 hours.
Unbelievable, dude. Props to you. I'm yet to do my first even marathon, so that's incredible. And what are you doing it for? It's you raising money?
Yes, for Irish cancer research. So
cool.
Yeah, no, for a good cause.
Amazing, dude. Well, good for you. That's incredible. Yeah, dude, all the best tomorrow. Yeah, go out and win that thing at this point.
Yeah.
Take first.
I'm in the first group with a lot of like Ethiopian runners, but I think I'm going I'm going to disappoint the people who believe I can put up an upset. But Nick, I'll let you go because I know you probably have a busy schedule ahead, but I just want to thank you for, spending time coming on, being quite open and honest, and musically, I look forward to what Girlfriends can lay into my ears in the future. And I said, I want to wish you all the best with whether it's Gross Labs, whether it's Big Noise or any other business ventures you're involved in. I wish you nothing but the best, but I do appreciate your time. And for anyone who wants to follow you, I'll attach all your socials and, sites below. So if anyone's interested in giving you a follow to learn the ups and downs of a musician / co-founder / founder / whatever, they're more than welcome to.
Awesome, dude. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, Nick. Take care.
Thanks, Rich.